about this. Alex Volkanovski with another masterclass. He continues to defy logic. He's timeless. He's all class. He's really going to go down as one of the greatest fighters of all time, regardless of weight class, right? And so as you're watching that, does the thought ever cross your mind, like, what was the point of all of this? Like, kind of felt it wasn't the same fight, but it did sort of feel like we just saw this. He proved that point in April, and he didn't really have to prove it again. And quite frankly, I did wonder what Lerone Murphy and Movsar Evloev, if they are watching, were thinking as well.
Aqui, ó, o bagulho é o seguinte. Tô ligado que o Volkanovski tá pedindo aí Evloev, não sei o quê. Tá pedindo os caras pra ele não se machucar, tá ligado? Irmão, sinto muito de informar. Se você quiser ficar de boa, sem se machucar, eu te entendo. Mas se você quiser lutar com um cara que bate forte, então sou eu, pai. E vou te falar mais. Eu vou lá fazer o camp com o Topuria pra te quebrar. Já vou te avisando, hein? Já vou te avisando. Eu vou lá pra... Ô, cadê meu empresário? Ô, pede um help lá pro Topuria, que eu vou lá fazer o camp com o Topuria pra quebrar o Volkanovski.
Eric, make sure you get the...
Can I just say, not enough is made of the fact that, like, and I know we kind of like talked about this after the last win, but still, who would have thought after the two losses, the knockout losses to Islam and Ilya, that he would come back and look like this? This doesn't happen. No. You know what I mean? And I know he just beat the same guy twice, but still, at 37, to come back from two devastating knockouts where it seemed as though like he may have lost his head, right? Lost everything, to come back and do this. Like, this guy's legacy, man, we are going to appreciate him even more when he is gone for what he's doing tail end of his career, Chuck.
Obviously, it does look like maybe it's going to be Movsar fighting, Murphy, but you like to stay active. There's, Jean Silva out there. I know Arman Tsarukyan wants a crack at it as well. If those guys are, maybe healing up because they still have to have this fight, would you be open to potentially fighting sooner against like a Jean Silva or a Arman Tsarukyan to stay active and keep the momentum going?
I mean, as I said, I'm an easy champ to understand. I'll talk to UFC if that's what they want. As long as, look, I feel bad enough, I feel bad enough that like there's guys that probably deserve. I'm going to eventually get it. Do I keep want to make them late and just, again, so I've got a responsibility. I talk about having a responsibility as a champion. I don't think enough champions look at it that way. For me, I look at it as a responsibility. There's rankings for a reason. There's people that deserve it. If someone does get in, I'll be active enough to still give the people that deserve it a chance anyway, so I don't have to wait too long. But I mean, if I'm just going to keep letting other people just cut the line, I'm not really doing my part either. So I'll talk to UFC, see what they say. But for me, again, I'm an easy champ. I understand at the end, Dave, the UFC just push it or whatever, all right. But we'll see what happens.
49-46, 49-46, and 50.
I mean, he's just got that chin. Can that chin last forever? No, he can't have that style. But he did make a few different changes. He tried to work a few things. He was flicking the kicks out, trying to work cut off a bit better. He was doing some different things, shooting as well. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? He's still got a pretty well-rounded game when it comes to knowing everything, all aspects. But he's going to get better at putting it all together, and then he won't have to rely on just that chin sooner or later. But it's always going to be dangerous when you're that type of guy. It's just unfortunate that he had to fight me for the two title fights. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, I know how to work the octagon, footwork. I can do all these things and take advantage of that with him. A lot of the other guys won't be able to do that for 25 minutes. They won't be able to make the adjustments that I can. So it's unfortunate, because if he had to 10 rounds with anyone else, they ain't doing what I did for them 10 rounds. So he's just, it's unfortunate in a sense. You know, he'll be back. You know, he's still young enough. He'll be back. Obviously, we won't be able to turn around too quick, but he keep doing his thing. Like, he's a gamer. The reason why he got a shot straight away is because he gets back in there, fights anyone, anywhere, anytime. You keep doing that, the UFC will favour him eventually anyway, so he'll get another chance.
Yeah, Volk is the greatest featherweight of all time. We talked about that. That was on display. He proved it tonight. Certainly proved that tonight.
The fight is done, the verdict is in, and the scorecards have spoken. Diego Lopes and Aleksandr Volkanovski did more than simply end a chapter. They tested every prediction. Narratives were locked in, fighters took sides, and analysts had their theories before the cage door closed. Some people read the moment flawlessly. Others failed to notice the turn at all. Now that we know how it actually transpired, let's go back and listen to the tape to see which experts really comprehended this matchup, and who came the closest to making the correct call. Michael Bisping had noted that Volkanovski's fight IQ had kept him ahead of most opponents even at the age of 37. He broke down the Holloway trilogy, showing how a razor-close first fight had turned into a smarter second outing and eventually a complete shutout once Volkanovski had fully worked out his opponent. Both Volkanovski and Diego Lopes had had a full 5 rounds to study each other, with their teams examining every detail, he claimed, and the same principle applied here.
Remember, Volkanovski, even though the man is 37 and there's this whole curse on smaller fighters over 35 years old, the man's fight IQ is off the charts. And look at some of the people that he has history with in terms of rematches. Look at the first fight against Max Holloway. Very close fight. A lot of people thought Holloway won that. The second match was a little bit better for Volkanovski. But the third match, by then, he downloaded the data and the man knew what to do. And it was an absolute shutout against Max Holloway. There was no discussion of robberies or anything like that. Volkanovski was clearly the better man on that night. So he's got 25 minutes with Diego Lopes, and Diego Lopes has got 25 minutes to study and analyse, and all his team to sit around. He's got the maddest mullet in all of Mexico, and his whole team will be sitting there going, right, here's what we got to do. Who's going to make the improvements? Who's going to make the adjustments? We don't know. Only time will tell. And guess what? It is that time, because I got to go. I got to get on a plane. 16 hours to Sydney. I'll see you there. I'll be doing some content. Thank you for watching. I'm talking fast because I got to rush. Who wins these fights? I can't tell you for once, right?
But Dricus du Plessis said that he thought Volkanovski still had it in him to keep his title, even if defenses were limited. He noted Lopes had learned from their first fight, but warned him too with the fact that getting Volkanovski down wasn't easy. He added that Lopes came in swinging harder this time compared to the first fight, but Volkanovski's experience and resilience would likely carry him through. And in the end, he believed it would come down to who could adapt better as the fight unfolded.
I do think Volk still has enough in him to keep that title. I don't know how many more he has in him, but you know, Lopes, obviously, he learned a lot from that first fight. Yeah. But I just think the experience from Volk's experience is just gonna, take a toll on the night, because on the grappling side you have Lopes, but to get Volk to the ground is not an easy task.
What does Lopes change for this one?
I think Lopes changed for this one, maybe some ego. I think he said it himself, and not in a bad way. He just went out there and said, cool, I'm just going to swing and knock this guy out. And when you're in there with a guy like Volk, things just don't happen like that. Yeah. You don't just go out there and you can clip him like he did, but Volk's a warrior. He's gonna weather that.
Then it got more statistical. Diego Lopes entered the fight with confidence, according to Tim Welch, having defeated fighters like Gene Silva and Brian Ortega, but he was up against a legend in Aleksandr Volkanovski. Volkanovski, who is 37 years old, has 27 victories, 13 KOs, 3 submissions, and 11 decisions. However, his last 5 fights have been 2-3. Welch noted that although Volkanovski had just defeated Diego by unanimous decision, prior defeats to Ilya and Islam demonstrated that fighters' personal circumstances and health always added uncertainty.
So quick, Diego Lopes did. Beat Brian Ortega, beat Dan Ige, beat Sodiq, beat Gene Silva. So he's got a lot of confidence coming into this bout, but he's taking on the great. He's taking on the great Aleksandr Volkanovski, who's a clean 37 years old now. A clean 37 years old with 27 wins, 13 KOs, 3 submissions, 11 decisions, and he's 2-3 in his last 5. He's 2-3 in his last 5. Last fight, April 12th against Diego, where he beat him by unanimous decision. Before that, got KO'd by Ilya, got KO'd by Islam. Again, with these, when we make these picks, we're always We're always thinking these guys are all 100% healthy. You never know what's going on in these guys' fight camps. You never know what's going on in their personal lives. You never know what's going on with injuries.
Tim said both fighters would be 100% healthy, but he had expected Volkanovski to get the win again. He explained that Volkanovski stayed active on the outside without overcommitting, then exploded with power when it mattered. Tim highlighted his ground dominance, strength, and ability to mix up attacks, noting that Volkanovski's athleticism and experience made him so hard to beat. In the end, he predicted Volkanovski would take the fight by decision and retain the featherweight title.
Stuff like that. Both guys 100% healthy. I think Volk gets it done again. He's too good at staying busy on the outside. Not really busy to where he's damaging you. Then he explodes in with like rugby-style tackles. He's dominant on the ground. He's strong. He's really hard to take down. He's even harder to keep down. And he's so good at mixing it up. He's so fast twitch. He used to be 250 pounds, so his bones are thick. And he's explosive. And he's the great for a reason. He is the great for a reason. So I think Aleksandr Volkanovski gets it done by decision and maintains the featherweight.
Then Chael Sonnen said that for Lopes to turn the fight around, he would need to pressure Volkanovski, cut him off, and keep him against the fence. He noted that in the first fight, Lopes acted like he was worried about grappling, but Sonnen didn't see that as a real threat. He emphasized that executing this strategy required elite conditioning, something Volkanovski clearly had in the first bout. Sonnen added that there hadn't been enough time for Lopes to make the necessary physical adjustments, so he ultimately picked Volkanovski to win.
I know that for Lopes to flip this script, he's going to have to go after Volk. He's going to have to go forward. He's going to have to not worry about that getting close enough that Volk can step in and grapple with him. I don't think that Volk's grappling is something that Lopes needs to worry about. But Lopes fought in that first fight like he was worried about the grappling. He's got to go forward. He's got to cut him off. He's got to put him into the fence. And to do that, you have to have incredible conditioning. And in the first fight, it was very evident that in the world of conditioning, Volk had it. And as I look at the calendar, there just hasn't been enough time. I know what it takes to change your shape. I know what it takes to change your conditioning. And there just hasn't been enough time. And for that reason, I am going.
On the other hand, Din Thomas pointed out that Diego Lopes' exciting, aggressive style could work against him, sometimes leading him straight into Volkanovski's traps. He added that the fight really came down to which Volkanovski showed up, acknowledging that age catches up fast, and even a small drop in instincts, vision, or ability to set traps could make the difference. Thomas concluded that if Volkanovski maintained his sharpness, he'd likely control the fight from start to finish.
And that's kind of the double-edged sword of Diego Lopes being such an entertaining fighter, is that, you know, at the expense of him making better decisions, which would keep him in the fight a little longer, you know, he's going to be a little bit more aggressive and maybe fall into some of the traps of Volkanovski. But I think this fight really does come down to which Volkanovski shows up. I mean, he's getting older, and I say it all the time, fighters age overnight. And if he aged overnight, he might lose this fight because he might run into something. He might not have the ability to set the same traps or have the same instincts or the same vision that he had a year ago.
He added that fighters seem to age overnight, and if Volkanovski had lost a step, he could very well lose this fight, something that would, in a way, justify putting Diego Lopes in the matchup. He explained that it was a lose-lose situation. Lopes' wild, aggressive style made him dangerous and hard to contain, so a Volkanovski loss would cost him the title. But a win might not earn much credit since fans could argue someone else deserved the shot. Thomas concluded that Volkanovski was in a tough spot where even winning wouldn't do much, yet the risk of losing was high.
When he was young, and when I say that, it's apparent to me that fighters get old overnight. And if Volkanovski got old overnight, he could very well lose this fight, which would not be a good thing. And it would kind of justify the fact, it would actually justify putting Diego Lopes in the fight in the first place. So that's why I said it's a lose-lose situation, because he could lose this fight because Diego Lopes is wild, he's aggressive, he's hard to kind of contain at times, and he's dangerous. If he goes out there and beat Volkanovski lose the title. If Volkanovski beats him, we'll just say he didn't deserve it anyway. The fans are going to say it should have been Lerone Murphy anyway. So that's why I think Volkanovski's he's in a spot here where he can't really win much by beating Diego Lopes. But the chances of him losing, it's high.
Building on that, Kamaru Usman had mentioned that fighters like Diego Lopes, with that aggressive head-down style, always carried a puncher's chance. They could hurt you and even end the fight. He added that while Lopes still had that threat, he was eager to see what adjustments had been made, particularly on the grappling side. Usman noted that Lopes might be stronger on his back than Volkanovski, though Volkanovski had rarely been tested there. He wrapped up by saying the matchup intrigued him, and he couldn't wait to see the changes Lopes brought into this fight.
That's what I'm looking for in this fight. I'm looking to see the improvements that Diego Lopes has made. But at the end of the day, listen, people that fight like Diego Lopes, which is kind of sort of that Mexican style, chin down, head down, and I'm coming to bang. People that fight like that, if they touch you with a shot, they could hurt you, and they potentially can get you out of there. So Diego Lopes has still got that puncher's chance, but I'm really anxious to see if he's made a lot of adjustments, if he's looking to work in the grappling, because I do believe Diego Lopes, I would say, is better on his back than Aleksandr Volkanovski. But then again, we've never seen Volkanovski on his back, really. So, man, I'm intrigued by this fight. I'm very intrigued. I can't wait to see the changes that...
Whereas Henry Cejudo pointed out that Diego Lopes had picked up new pointers from different coaches, which could play a big role in the fight. He said Lopes would need to control space, limit Volkanovski's lateral movement, and start rounds strong, something he'd done against fighters like Sabatini. Cejudo added that if Lopes brought that aggressive Mexican-style approach, he could catch Volkanovski off guard. But for Volkanovski, he explained, the key would be playing the smart 5-round game touch, move, and adapt, as he had famously done in his rematch with Max Holloway, coming out as a completely different fighter.
And he's also worked with my coach too, Eddie Cha. So he's been able to get like different pointers from a different coach and things like that. And a lot of that shit could play a big role in there. You know, could Diego Lopes create that fight, cover space, not allow Volkanovski to do his lateral movements, his punt fakes and go? You know, could he just catch him in clean? And one of the biggest things with Diego Lopes, where he's really hot and he's really big on, is starting off the round hot. Just ask Sabatini. Like, bro, Sabatini was that's one of his better wins, bro. Sabatini is a really underrated dude that is really high up there, man. So I feel like if Diego's able to really bring that fight, go Mexican style with Volkanovski, the simple fact that Volk has been put out to sleep, like, he could catch that victory. But to me, for Aleksandr Volkanovski, he is going to have to play that 5-round game of just touch and go. Like, become a lot smarter. And we also have to remember, when Aleksandr Volkanovski had a close fight with Max Holloway the first time they fought, the rematch, he was completely different. So there's one thing about Volkanovski, he makes really, really, really good adjustments, and he comes out.
Henry had gone on to point out the biggest strength for Volkanovski was his ability to adapt. He noted that while the champ was a little older and had been knocked out before, he was still hungry, still seeking knowledge, and motivated by fighting in his hometown, a factor that could help or hurt him depending on the fighter. Cejudo finished by agreeing that he'd side with Aleksandr Volkanovski in this one.
Yeah, well, dude, and that's the biggest thing, man. I think the biggest thing with Volkanovski is his ability to adapt. I mean, he is a little older, and he has been knocked out, but he's still looking for knowledge. He's still hungry. He's fighting in his hometown. You know, that could be a plus or a minus depending on who you are. But I gotta agree with you, man. I gotta go with.
Moreover, Israel Adesanya had firmly picked Volkanovski in this fight, expecting a decision rather than a finish. He praised Diego Lopes for his toughness, pointing to the spinning back elbow against Silva as proof he could compose himself under pressure. Adesanya added that while Lopes would have big moments, he didn't see him tiring or backing up like in the first fight. He concluded that Volkanovski's adjustments and pressure would likely carry him to a decision win. Furthermore, Colby Covington said the fight made sense, but he pointed out that Volkanovski was nearing the end of his career. He acknowledged the champion's achievements, winning and defending the title, but questioned how many fights he had left and suggested it could be his last. Covington added that if he were betting, the safer pick would have been Diego Lopes, believing Lopes could get the win. He also noted that Lopes' confidence and recent improvements made him a real threat on fight night. On the contrary, Dan Hardy said he expected Volkanovski to get the win. He admitted Lopes might take a around and show some improvements, but Hardy didn't think they would be enough to make a major difference, especially if a sharper version of Volkanovski showed up. He added that Volkanovski's gas tank and ability to handle chaos would work in his favor, particularly over 5 rounds, limiting what Lopes could actually do. Hardy concluded that if Volkanovski executed his game plan, he'd likely control the fight from start to finish. So who ended up being closest with their predictions? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for all the latest updates and fight breakdowns.